Right everyone, it is Finn here and welcome to my Afcon Qualifier predictions for round 4, where today we've got some beautiful African football to talk about. And before we jump into our round 4 predictions, I do want to give you guys a tiny bit of a warning that in order to get this video out in time, I'm busy recording this on the Friday halfway through round 3. So of course at the time of recording, not everyone's played so far this international break, so hopefully that hasn't swayed my predictions too much. But of course I know I'll still enjoy making this video and hopefully you guys still enjoy watching it. But of course, jumping into our first game of round 4 of the Afcon qualifiers, we have Sao Tome and Principe versus Sierra Leone. Now of course, I'd love to give a major apology to Sao Tome and Principe.
I've made a severe and continuous lapse in my judgment.
Because versus Sierra Leone, last time around I gave them absolutely no chance, but of course they proved me wrong with their resilience in a 2-2 draw last time. Saying that this time around I am going to give a 1-0 win to Sierra Leone, because although yes, on 2 occasions Sao Tome and Principe took the lead in that game, they just showed twice that they could lose their lead, showing that defensively they do need to improve, and although this could go either way, I'm going to go for Sierra Leone. I think they've really showed their resilience in attack. Now, jumping into our next game, it is Lesotho versus Zambia, which, as I said in the previous video, I'm heartbroken that Mwepu isn't still in this team. Well, maybe heartbroken's the wrong terminology to use in the situation. But obviously Zambia once again showed how ruthless they can be with the 3-1 win over Lesotho last time around. And this time around I think it will be the same goal difference, but it is going to be a 2-0 win. I can see Zambia taking this one and it should be dominant. Now, next up, we do have Rwanda versus Benin, who did get a 1-1 draw last time around. And I do think it'll be a bit more cutthroat this time. I do think Rwanda had a very, very good game, although they did end up picking up a red card. I do think that they were the better team on the day. And this time around, I do think they'll pick up a 1-0 win. Now, heading into our next game, it is going to be South Sudan versus Congo, who did pick up a 2-1 win on the side of South Sudan last time around. And I do think Congo will get their revenge this time. Once again, looking at South Sudan, although they picked up the result, I didn't necessarily think that they were the better team. I think Congo, in many aspects, I think possession-wise, I would almost say dominance-wise, I think that they almost dominated that game in many aspects. But South Sudan, once again, they utilized their chances better. As I said, this time around, I do think Congo will take it and it will be a 1-0 win. Now, heading into our next game, it is going to be the Central African Republic versus Madagascar. And looking at Madagascar, I don't know why they did so bad in their previous game. They've really got a brilliant selection of players in their squad, but they lost 3-0. Looking at Central African Republic, I just think they absolutely dominated it. But I'm going to put forward a shocking prediction here. I think this time around, heading into this game, because the Central African Republic got such a giant win, I think they're going to underestimate Madagascar, and I think Madagascar are going to come back with a shock 1-0 win. Once again, this is football, absolutely anything can happen, and I do think Madagascar will cause a shock. Now, of course, heading into our next game, it's not a game that I think there will be too many shocks. It is Guinea-Bissau versus Nigeria. Now, of course, at the time of recording, neither of these two teams have played yet, but I've got full confidence that the Super Eagles of Nigeria should take this one. Oops. Obviously, looking at Guinea-Bissau, although they've got a few decent players here and there, defensively Nigeria, super good, attacking wise, super good, and I'm going to give them I'm going to go for a 3-1 win, to be honest. Now, next up, we do have Angola versus Ghana, which I will say Ghana left it way too late in their previous game versus Angola. I think it was the 96th minute where Semenya ended up getting that winner. And what a brilliant start to Chris Hughton's reign ahead of the Black Stars of Ghana. Obviously, this time around, I do think Ghana have learned their lessons, that they cannot sleep on Angola, that they can perform really well, which is why I am going to give Ghana a 2-0 win. I think they're going to be a lot more ruthless this time around, and they're not going to sleep on the ability of Angola.
You have saved our lives. We are eternally grateful.
Now, next up, we do have Niger versus Algeria, which once again, superhero Riyad Mahrez had to save the day for the Phoenix Foxes because Algeria once again left it to the 88th minute for Mahrez to get the winner. Once again, Niger is not a bad team on the attacking front, and Algeria had to work really hard for that win. In fact, I'm going to copy and paste the result from last time around, and I do think Algeria are going to get another 2-1 win. Now, moving on, we do have Ethiopia versus Guinea, which I will admit, once again, this is a game that I feel like has potential to go either way. I feel like both teams are extremely similar. I don't know whether there are going to be a lot of goals in a game like this. I feel like defensively, they're really going to be locking each other out, which is why I'm going to go for a very rare 0-0 draw. Once again, doesn't sound that exciting on paper, but on the pitch, I'm sure it could be a bit of mayhem. Now, heading into our next game, we do have Sudan versus Gabon, which, as I said in the previous video, I think Gabon is so underrated. I feel like everyone thought that they depended too much on Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, but getting a 1-0 win last time around, I think just proved the ability in this squad, and I think they're going to duplicate a 1-0 win versus Sudan again this time around. Now, next up, we do have Eswatini, also known as Swaziland, versus Cape Verde, and once again, looking at Cape Verde, I don't see why they should lose points here, unless something horribly goes wrong in round 3 that I'm unaware of.
What is this?
Cape Verde is by far a better footballing nation from what I've seen, and I think they should take a 2-1 win. Wouldn't be surprised if no goals were scored by Eswatini, but I do think Cape Verde should take it. Now heading into our next game, being Malawi versus Egypt, I heard quite a few people were upset with me last time around where I did predict a draw for these two. Once again, maybe it won't come out as a draw. Obviously, by the time you guys see this video, you'll know the result of it. But once again, Egypt, rock bottom of their group, and they do need to escape it. Once again, until they can prove they can win again, I'm a tiny bit scared, to be honest with you. But once again, we know the quality in their team, we know the star players they have in their team, and I am going to predict a win this time around with a 2-1 win. I do feel like it could be annoyingly close, but I'd like to be proven wrong. Now, next up, we do have Botswana versus Equatorial Guinea, which once again, we've just seen a lot more from Equatorial Guinea over the last few years. I feel like on the attacking front, they've really showed their strengths, defensively really shown their strengths, and they should take at least a 2-0 win. Now, next up, once again, Namibia versus Cameroon, and I've said on many occasions that I so badly want Southern African teams to do well here. But looking at Namibia, as much as I want them to do well, and yes, they do have a few players who are really decent on the pitch, I just think Cameroon, once again, we saw them at the World Cup. I mean, how many African nations, or how many nations in the world do we know that could take down the almighty Brazil?
We created it.
Once again, Cameroon is one of those nations, and they should take home a 2-0 win. Now, heading on to our next game, as we know, we've got a few cancelled and postponed games due to Zimbabwe and Kenya, well, not playing by the rules, let's say.
Naughty, naughty.
But of course, we've got Gambia versus Mali next. Now, as I've said on many different occasions, I feel like Gambia is a super strong team that people do underestimate. But I do feel the same about Mali. I feel like especially their midfield is super packed. But if I had to choose a winner between these two teams, I don't know if I could do it. I do think this time around it is going to be... Actually, you know what? I'm going to be strong. I'm going to put forward a winner, and I'm going to say the Gambia should win it 2-1. Although, once again, I like a surprise here and there. Now, of course, my nation is up next with South Africa versus Liberia. Now, once again, I'm hoping South Africa can do the job the first time around, and if they're able to do it the first time around, I do think they'll do it the second time around, as I do think heading into this game, South Africa should pick up a 2-1 win. Once again, this Bafana team have showed time and time again that they can be really solid, but once again, it's just a matter of consistency throughout the 90 minutes, and hopefully they can deliver here. Now, heading into Tanzania versus Uganda, I've said on many different occasions how absolutely similar they are. Obviously, got a very similar loss to each other versus Algeria. I think they both lost 2-0. And obviously they drew versus Niger 1-1 apiece. Once again, they're very similar as nations. And once again, I have to go for a 1-1 draw. I can't split the difference. Now, heading into our next game, it is Mozambique versus Senegal. Once again, although the Senegalese national team players haven't done well at club level, as I said in the previous game, I do feel like as a nation, they are super strong, and they've dominated African football across all competitions over the last year or two. And because of that reason, I do have to give them a win over Mozambique, and I'm going to put forward a 3-0 win. I know it was only a 1-0 win in my previous video, but this time around, I feel like they're going to really pull up their socks. Now, heading into one of our final games, we do have Comoros versus Ivory Coast, which, once again, as much as I like the Comoros Islands, I do think Ivory Coast are by far a better footballing nation, although, once again, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. We've seen Comoros take down some of the best football nations in the world. But I do think Cote d'Ivoire will win this one, and I do think it will be I'm going to go for a 3-0 win. Now, before we jump into our third game, once again, let me not forget to remind you guys that if you have enjoyed this video, and if you do enjoy this type of content, don't forget to subscribe down below, as it does help the channel out.
No. No, I don't think I will.
But looking at Togo versus Burkina Faso next, once again, Togo, absolutely brilliant footballing nation. As we heard, Adebayo recently retired from international football, from football as a whole, which is of course a huge loss. An absolute Togolese legend. But of course, look at these two nations on paper. I do think Burkina Faso is still a slightly stronger team, which is why I am going to give them a 2-1 win here. Once again, we've seen them on the attacking front. They can create chances, defensively can be super solid, and they should take this one. Now, jumping into our second last game, we have Libya versus Tunisia, which, once again, I've said time in and time again, this Tunisian national team is so strong. We saw it in the Current Cup, we saw it at the World Cup versus France. Tunisia should take this one 3-0. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us to our final game of round 4 of Afcon qualifiers, with Mauritania versus the DRC. Once again, in my previous video, I did predict Mauritania to win that one.
Sometimes my genius is... it's almost frightening.
But this time around, I think the DRC are going to take it. I think, as I said, if they do end up losing the first game, they're going to have a tiny bit of a taste for revenge in the next game. I do think they will take it, and I think they'll come back very, very strong with a 3-1 win. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, that is it for my Afcon round 4 qualifier predictions. Once again, if you disagree with any of my predictions, well, first of all, tough luck. They're my opinion. But
ooh, you're hard.
But obviously, jokes aside, don't forget to put your predictions down below. Always interested to see. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all very, very soon.